The desert was endless, stretching far beyond the horizon. Its golden sands moved like waves under the burning sun. The heat rose from the ground in shimmering lines, as if the air itself wanted to melt. In this place of silence and death, a single alien ship landed with a hiss of fire. The ship was large, dark, and covered in strange silver marks. It belonged to the alien Baron, a powerful leader feared across many worlds. His tall armored guards stepped onto the sand, their faces hidden behind masks. Behind them came the Baron himself, a giant figure with red skin and sharp eyes. But the one who followed last was not like the others. She was a young girl, fragile. Her legs weak and twisted, she leaned on a staff, her thin body shaking with every step. Her name was Soraya, and she was the daughter of the Baron. The Baron stopped in the middle of the desert. He turned to look at his daughter, his face hard as stone. The guards stood in silence waiting. The desert wind blew around them, carrying only whispers of dust. "You are weak," the Baron said, his voice like thunder. "You are broken, and you bring shame to my bloodline." The girl lowered her head, her hands shaking on the staff. "But father, I can still learn, I can still serve our people," she whispered. The Baron's eyes grew colder. "There is no place for weakness in my empire," he declared. "From today you are nothing. You are abandoned." He turned away and gave a signal to his guards. The soldiers moved back toward the ship. Soraya cried out, her voice breaking, "Father! Please do not leave me here." But the Baron did not turn back. The alien ship rose with fire and smoke. Its shadow covered the girl for one last moment. Then it climbed into the sky, leaving her alone. The roar of its engines faded until only silence remained. Soraya fell to the sand, her staff slipping from her hand. Her legs could not carry her far. The desert was too wide, the sun too hot. Tears rolled down her face as she realized the truth. Her own father had left her to die. Hours passed, the sun moved higher, Soraya's lips cracked. Her throat burned. She crawled slowly, her hands sinking in the hot sand. Every movement was pain. Every breath felt heavy. The desert wanted to swallow her whole. But fate was not finished with her far in the distance. A human traveler walked across the dunes. He was not a soldier, not a nobleman, just a wanderer. His clothes were torn, his face covered with sand and sweat. His name was Daniel, a man who had lost his own home long ago. When Daniel saw something moving in the sand, he stopped. At first, he thought it was only a mirage, a trick of the heat, but then he heard a faint cry, soft and broken. He ran closer and found the girl lying half buried in the dunes. She was pale, her breathing shallow, her eyes half closed. Daniel knelt beside her, lifting her carefully. "What happened to you? Who left you here?" he asked. The girl opened her lips, but no words came, only a whisper. "Father left me." Daniel looked at her in shock. What kind of father would abandon his child in such a place? He gave her water from his flask. Holding it gently to her lips, the girl drank weakly, her body trembling. For the first time, color returned to her face. The desert wind howled again, carrying silence with it. Daniel looked at the empty horizon. No sign of a ship, no sign of help. He knew she would not survive without him, and he also knew that if he chose to help, danger would surely follow. He lifted her into his arms. Feeling how light she was, her staff clattered against the sand, but he picked it up too. As he carried her, the girl whispered again, her voice filled with fear. "They will come for me. They will not let me live." Daniel frowned but said nothing. Who were they? Why did they want her dead? The questions burned in his mind, but he only tightened his hold on the girl. Somewhere deep inside, he felt this meeting was no accident. The desert had brought them together for a reason. Above them, the sky turned darker as night approached. Stars began to shine like cold eyes watching from above. The desert was still, but it was not empty somewhere far away. Eyes were already searching for the girl, and Daniel had no idea how dangerous his path had just become. Daniel walked through the desert with Soraya in his arms. The stars above were sharp and bright, watching them like silent guardians. The night was cold now, the heat of day gone, and the desert winds cut like knives. Daniel's feet sank into the soft sand, but he did not stop. The girl was too weak, her breathing shallow, and he knew she needed shelter before morning. Finally, he found the ruins of an old human outpost. Half buried in the dunes, its walls were broken, its roof cracked, but it was still better than the open desert. Daniel laid Soraya on a pile of old blankets he had kept from his travels. her eyes half opened, glowing faintly under the starlight. It was strange. Her eyes were not like human eyes. They seemed to carry a soft blue fire inside them. He gave her more water, then some dry bread she ate slowly. Each bite a struggle, but she did not complain. After some time, her voice returned, weak but steady. "You should not have saved me," she whispered. Daniel frowned. "Why?" She looked away, her gaze lost in the darkness. "Because now you are marked," she said. "My father will not allow me to live. And he will not forgive anyone who stands beside me." Her words made the night feel colder. But Daniel only shook his head. "I do not care who your father is," he replied. "No one deserves to be left in the sand to die." Soraya studied him quietly. As if trying to understand him, her people believed strength was all that mattered. But here was a human who chose to protect someone broken and weak. Her heart felt a strange warmth, something she had never felt before. As the night deepened, Daniel lit a small fire with scraps of wood. Its glow painted the ruins in red light, shadows dancing across the cracked walls. Soraya sat close, her thin hands stretched toward the warmth for the first time in her life. She was not in a cold palace filled with judgment. For the first time, she felt safe. Then something unexpected happened. The staff Daniel had carried for her, an alien tool of black metal, began to hum softly, its surface lit with faint blue lines glowing like veins of fire. Daniel stepped back in surprise. "What is that?" he asked. Soraya's eyes widened, fear and wonder mixing together.
"It reacts to me," she whispered. "It always has, but my father hated it."
He said it was a curse. The light from the staff grew brighter, spreading across the floor of the ruins. Symbols appeared, carved into the stone long ago, glowing like they had been waiting for her touch. Daniel stared in shock as the ground beneath them trembled. "What did you do?" he asked, his voice tense. Soraya shook her head. "It is not me. It is the staff. It knows me." The glow faded slowly, leaving only silence in the crackle of the fire. Daniel's heart raced, but Soraya looked calm, almost peaceful for the first time. She had seen her hidden power, and for the first time, she did not feel completely broken. Later, as the fire burned low, Daniel asked her gently, "Why did your father leave you?" The question hung heavy in the cold air. Soraya's hands tightened around the staff, her voice trembling as she answered, "Because I was born crippled. My legs were weak, my body frail, and he believed I could never lead." She paused, then her eyes glowed brighter. "But there was another reason," she whispered. "When I was young, the staff reacted to me. It showed me visions of ancient machines, cities buried in sand, weapons of forgotten times. Her father had seen it too, and fear had entered his heart. He believed that if I lived, I would grow stronger than him. So he cast me away." Daniel felt a deep anger rise within him. How could a father fear his own child? But he stayed silent, letting Soraya continue. She looked at him, her eyes filled with tears and fire at the same time. "You are human. Yet you did not fear me. Why?" Daniel smiled faintly, his voice steady. "Because I see more than weakness when I look at you," he said. "I see someone who has survived the desert, someone who still breathes even after being left for dead. You are not useless, Soraya. You are stronger than you know." Her chest tightened at his words, warmth spreading through her. No one had ever spoken to her like that before. Her own people saw her as broken, but this human saw something else. She clutched the staff tighter, her heart beating fast for the first time. She believed she might have a purpose outside. The desert winds howled like distant voices. Unknown shadows moved across the dunes, alien hunters searching for her trail. But inside the ruins, Soraya felt a spark awaken within her. She was not just a crippled girl anymore. She was something her father feared, something greater, and now she was not alone. The desert night was quiet, but Daniel felt no peace. The ruins where he and Soraya rested were fragile. Broken and open to the stars, the fire had gone cold, leaving only smoke that rose like a signal into the sky. Daniel knew that in such a wide desert, even smoke could be a beacon. And if her father truly feared her, then enemies would soon come. Soraya sat with her staff in her hands, the faint blue light pulsing softly. Her eyes were distant, as if she could see something far away, something Daniel could not. Suddenly, she whispered, "They are coming." Daniel looked at her sharply. "How do you know?" She turned her glowing eyes toward him. "Because I can feel them, their minds, their hunger. A chill ran down Daniel's spine, but there was no time to doubt her. He gathered his few supplies, water, rope, a small blade, and slung them over his shoulder. "Then we cannot stay here," he said firmly. He lifted Soraya to her feet, letting her lean on him as they left the ruins. The desert stretched ahead, endless and silent, but Daniel knew it was safer to move than wait. Hours passed under the pale moonlight, their footsteps soft in the sand. Soraya's strength was weak, but her will was strong. She did not complain. Her staff glowed now and then as if guiding them, but behind them, far across the dunes, the silence broke. Engines low and deep rolled through the night air like a coming storm. Daniel turned and saw them, dark alien craft hovering low, their lights sharp and cruel. He cursed under his breath, gripping Soraya's arm tighter. "They are here," he muttered. Soraya's lips trembled. "Hunters, my father's shadows." The alien craft landed, kicking up storms of sand. From them stepped tall figures clad in black armor, their faces hidden. Each carried a weapon that hissed with blue fire. They spread across the dunes like wolves searching for prey. Their leader raised his arm, scanning the desert with a device that beeped and flashed. Daniel pulled Soraya into the hollow of a dune, forcing her to crouch low. His heart pounded as the aliens moved closer, their voices sharp and cold. Soraya clutched his arm, whispering, "You cannot fight them. They are too strong." Daniel's jaw tightened. "Then we will not fight. We will survive." He pulled a small mirror from his pack, angling it toward the fireless ruins behind them. The moonlight caught the mirror and flashed across the rocks. A trick, a false signal. The alien hunters turned toward the ruins, moving like shadows toward the light. Daniel grabbed Soraya's hand and dragged her in the opposite direction, deeper into the dunes. For a moment it worked. The hunters followed the false trail, but Soraya gasped, her body shaking. "They know. They feel me," she said. "They will find us soon." Her words proved true. One of the alien ships rose again, sweeping the sands with a bright searchlight. The beam cut across the dunes, hunting for the girl who should have been dead. Daniel pulled her down into the sand, covering her body with his own. The light passed over them once, twice, then moved away. But Daniel knew luck would not protect them for long. He had only his mind, his will, and the strange trust growing between him and this alien child. They moved again, this time toward the dark outline of a canyon in the distance. The stone walls promised shelter, shadows to hide within, but the sound of engines grew louder. The hunters closing in, Daniel pushed Soraya forward, his breath ragged, his muscles burning. Still, he did not stop. As they reached the canyon, Soraya stumbled, nearly falling. Daniel caught her, whispering, "Stay with me." Her staff hit the ground, glowing brighter than ever. The walls of the canyon answered, strange symbols flickering across the stone. The hunters froze for a moment, startled, then shouted in their alien tongue. Soraya's eyes widened. "The canyon knows me. It wakes for me." Before Daniel could ask, the ground shook. The sand trembled as if something ancient moved beneath it. The hunters fired their weapons, blue fire cutting through the night. Daniel pulled Soraya into the shadows, the blasts scorching the rocks around them. He looked into her glowing eyes and saw fear, but also strength. This child was no curse, no weakness. She was a key, a secret her father had tried to bury. And Daniel understood the truth. If she survived, she could change everything, but if she fell, the galaxy would remain under the shadow of men like her father. The canyon rumbled again, louder this time. The hunters closed in, weapons raised. Daniel gripped his blade, ready to fight even against impossible odds. Beside him, Soraya raised her staff, its light burning like a star. For the first time, she did not look like a crippled child. She looked like something greater, something the hunters had every reason to fear. The canyon trembled beneath their feet, sending loose stones rolling down its walls. The alien hunters raised their weapons, shouting in their harsh language. Blue fire hissed from their rifles, striking the rocks, leaving burns across the stone. Daniel shielded Soraya with his body, pulling her deeper into the canyon shadows. But the staff in her hands glowed brighter, and the ground shook even harder. Symbols lit up on the canyon walls, glowing lines that spread like rivers of light. The hunters froze, confusion flickering across their hidden faces. They had expected a crippled child, weak and helpless. Instead, they saw a girl who woke powers older than their empire. Soraya's eyes burned with the same light, her voice steady. "They are not here for me only. They are here because of what I carry inside. Daniel glanced at her, his breath rough. What do you mean? Soraya pressed her trembling hand against the stone wall, and the canyon answered. A section of the wall split open. Stone grinding against stone. Behind it, a dark tunnel revealed itself, breathing out cool ancient air. The desert hides more than sand, she whispered. It hides what my father fears most. Daniel wasted no time. He pulled her inside the tunnel just as alien fire struck the wall behind them. The door of stone closed on its own. Shutting out the hunters' shouts and weapons, darkness surrounded them, broken only by the glow of her staff. The air smelled old, filled with dust and secrets untouched for centuries. Their footsteps echoed as they moved deeper into the tunnel. The walls were covered with carvings, strange figures of tall beings. Not quite alien, not quite human. Soraya's fingers traced the symbols, her eyes glowing brighter with each touch. They speak of the makers, she said softly. The ones who built the cities before time. The ones who vanished when the stars were still young. Daniel frowned, his mind racing. And why do you know this? She looked at him, her face pale but calm. Because their voices whisper to me. They have since I was a child. The tunnel opened into a vast chamber, so large Daniel could not see the ceiling. Pillars rose like giants, covered in glowing lines that pulsed like veins. In the center stood a massive machine half buried in the ground. Silent but alive, its surface was black metal, its edges too smooth to be made by hands. Daniel stepped closer, his voice hushed. What is this place? Soraya's staff flared, and the machine answered. Light surged across its body. Gears turned with a sound like thunder under the earth. The ground shook as if something far larger than the canyon itself was waking. Daniel stumbled back, but Soraya walked forward with steady steps. Her weak legs carried her, but it was as if the machine itself supported her. My father feared this, she said, her voice trembling but strong. He knew the makers left their power hidden in the desert, and he knew it answered only to me. She reached out her hand, and the machine bent toward her like a servant bowing to its queen. Daniel could not believe his eyes. This girl, abandoned as useless, was commanding technology greater than any empire. But their moment did not last. A deep roar echoed from behind the stone walls. The hunters had found a way through. Cutting the rock apart with their weapons, Daniel grabbed his blade. Standing between Soraya and the opening, Can you control it? He shouted. Soraya closed her eyes, gripping the staff. I can try. The machine's surface cracked open. Releasing waves of blue light, shards of energy floated into the air like sparks. Circling Soraya, the hunters burst into the chamber. Weapons raised, but they froze at the sight before them. The crippled girl they were ordered to kill was now the center of a storm of ancient power. Her voice echoed across the chamber, calm and commanding. You cannot touch me here. The walls themselves responded. Lines of light burning brighter. The hunters fired, their shots vanishing in the glow before reaching her. Daniel slashed at the nearest alien who dared to step closer, his blade cutting true. But most of the enemies were too afraid to advance. They backed away slowly, whispering to one another, fear in their voices. Soraya lowered her staff, the storm fading but not gone. The machine settled into silence again, though its light still pulsed, alive and waiting. Her chest rose and fell heavily, sweat on her brow, but her eyes glowed brighter than ever. She turned to Daniel, her voice firm. This is only the beginning. What lies beneath this desert is greater than armies, greater than my father, greater than all who seek to rule the stars. Daniel looked at her, truly seeing her for the first time. Not a fragile child, not a cripple, but a spark of something new. Something the galaxy had forgotten but now returned. And though the hunters retreated, he knew they would return with more. The Baron would not rest until this power was destroyed or claimed, but Daniel also knew one thing clearly. He would not abandon her, not now, not ever. Together, they would face what the desert still hid. And together they would stand against the coming storm. The chamber was silent after the hunters retreated. Only the soft hum of the ancient machine filled the air, echoing like the breath of a sleeping giant. Daniel kept his blade ready, eyes locked on the entrance, waiting for another attack, but none came. The canyon walls seemed to close again, sealing them inside with the strange power. Soraya stood in the center of the glowing floor, her staff pulsing like a heart. The light wrapped around her fragile frame, making her look taller, stronger, almost unearthly. Daniel watched in awe, his chest tight. He had rescued a dying child in the sand, but now he was standing beside a force greater than any army. Soraya turned slowly, her eyes glowing bright blue. They left it for me, she whispered. The makers built this long ago, waiting for one who could wake it. Her voice shook with both wonder and fear. Daniel stepped closer, his voice low. And why you? Why not your father? She lowered her gaze, her hands trembling on the staff. Because I am broken in body but not in mind, she said. The staff listens to thoughts, to will, not to strength of muscle. Her lips curved in a sad smile. My father never understood that to him. Weakness of body meant weakness of soul. Daniel clenched his fists, anger rising again. To abandon her for what made her special was not strength, it was cowardice. But before he could speak, the floor beneath them rumbled. The glowing line stretched outward, spreading into the earth. The chamber trembled as if the desert itself was waking. Soraya gasped, clutching the staff tighter. The city, it is here under the sand, she whispered, her eyes wide. Daniel's eyes widened too. A city? Buried? She nodded. Not just a city. A machine. Alive, the walls of the chamber cracked, sending streams of light upward through the canyon above. The ground shook harder, sand falling like waterfalls from the ceiling. Daniel grabbed Soraya's arm, trying to steady her, but she pulled free. Stepping boldly into the center of the chamber, the staff blazed with light and the machine obeyed. Above them, the desert split open, dunes collapsing into a deep pit. From the depths rose towers of black metal, covered in glowing veins. Structures taller than mountains pushed through the sand. Shaking the ground for miles, the buried city revealed itself. Ancient and terrible, Daniel stared, speechless, as the impossible unfolded before his eyes. Soraya swayed, her body weak but her spirit unbroken. She felt the city's voice inside her mind, deep and endless. It called her its heir, its keeper, its key. Her father had feared this moment, and now she understood why. The Baron ruled with armies and fear, but this city could rule with power no empire could match. Daniel turned to her, his face pale in the glow. What happens now? He asked, his voice trembling. Soraya looked at him, her eyes glowing like twin stars. Now the galaxy changes, she said, and I must choose what it becomes. The towers above roared as energy surged through them. Blinding beams of blue shot into the sky, cutting through the night far across the desert. Ships in orbit would see it, and the Baron would know. Daniel's chest tightened. Your father will come, he warned. Soraya nodded, her voice calm. Yes, he will bring his armies, but now I am no longer helpless. The ground shook one last time before settling. The machine city stood in silence, awake but waiting for command. Daniel helped Soraya sit on a stone ledge, her body trembling with exhaustion. You must rest, he urged. Whatever this place is, it will wait for you. But Soraya shook her head slowly, her eyes fixed on the glowing towers above. This is not just a city, she whispered. It is a weapon, a library, and a world of its own. She closed her eyes, listening to voices only she could hear. They left it because they believed one day someone would need it again. Her voice grew firm. And now that day has come, Daniel sat beside her, his thoughts heavy. He was only a man, a wanderer who had lost his people, yet somehow he had become protector to the one who might change the stars. The weight of it pressed on him, but he did not run, because in Soraya's eyes, he saw something worth fighting for far above. The desert winds carried the echo of alien engines. The Baron's hunters had not truly fled, they had gone to report. Soon the Baron himself would arrive, with ships, soldiers, and fire, but Daniel was ready. His blade sharp, his will unbroken, and Soraya was ready too, her weakness turning into strength, her fear into purpose. The city pulsed once more. A heartbeat in the sand, its glow spread across the horizon, touching the stars themselves. The age of silence was over, the forgotten were rising, and the galaxy would never be the same again. The night sky burned with light as alien ships descended over the desert. Their engines roared like thunder, shaking the sand and the towers of the awakened city. Daniel stood at the edge of the machine's great platform. His blade in hand beside him, Soraya clutched her glowing staff, her face pale but her eyes fierce. The moment her father had feared had arrived. The Baron was here from the largest ship. A shadow fell across the ruins. The alien Baron stepped down, towering and terrible, his armor black and edged with silver. His red eyes glowed with hate as he stared at Soraya, his crippled daughter who had defied him. Behind him marched soldiers in rows, hunters and machines armed with weapons of blue fire. The ground shook beneath their steps. A tide of death closing in, Soraya's body trembled. But she did not lower her staff. Her voice carried across the canyon, clear and steady. "You left me to die," she said, "but I survived, and now the city answers to me." The Baron's laugh was cold, echoing like broken steel. "You are nothing, Soraya," he thundered. "Your body is weak, your spirit is weak. And this city will break you as I broke you." Daniel stepped forward, standing between her and the Baron. His voice cut through the roar of engines. "She is not weak. She is stronger than you will ever be." The Baron's gaze turned to him, his lip curling in disgust. "A human," he sneered. "Always crawling where they do not belong. Do you think you can protect her from me?" Daniel tightened his grip on his blade. "I do not think I know." The Baron raised his arm, and the soldiers surged forward. The first wave charged with weapons blazing, blue bolts cutting through the air. Daniel moved quickly, ducking behind the stone pillars. Dragging Soraya with him, energy blasts struck the walls, sparks flying, dust filling the air. The ground shook as heavy machines advanced, their cannons glowing with deadly light. Soraya pressed her staff to the floor, her eyes glowing brighter. The city responded, towers shifting, walls rising from the sand like shields. Alien fire struck the barriers but broke apart in showers of sparks. The hunters shouted in panic, their weapons useless against the ancient defenses. Daniel's heart raced. He realized the city was not only alive, it was fighting for her. The Baron roared in fury, his voice shaking the canyon. "Do you think stone and light will save you?" he bellowed. He lifted his own weapon, a massive blade crackling with red energy. With a single strike, he cut through one of the rising walls. The stone exploding into dust, his soldiers cheered, their fear turning back into rage. Daniel pulled Soraya deeper into the city. "This place is alive, but it cannot win without you," he said urgently. Soraya's hands shook on the staff, her body weak, sweat running down her face. "I am not strong enough," she whispered, tears in her eyes. Daniel grabbed her shoulders, his voice fierce. "You are stronger than you think, I have seen it. You must believe it now." Her heart pounded, his words burning inside her. She raised the staff high, her voice breaking but strong. "I am the keeper," she cried, and the city roared in answer. The ground split open. Machines of black metal rose from beneath the sand. They were giants with glowing eyes, their arms shaped into weapons of light. The soldiers faltered, fear returning to their steps. The machines opened fire, beams of blue energy tearing through the Baron's army. Hunters fell screaming, their ships blasted from the sky. The desert became a battlefield of fire and lightning. Daniel fought among the chaos, his blade cutting down any soldier who broke through. The Baron roared again, his eyes blazing with fury. He leapt forward, striking one of the ancient machines with his burning blade. The machine collapsed, exploding into shards of metal and light. Soraya gasped, the shock hitting her like pain, but she did not fall. She tightened her grip, pushing harder. Commanding more of the city to rise, Daniel fought his way back to her. Blood on his arm, dust on his face. He shouted above the noise, "Soraya, he will come for you next." And he was right. The Baron turned his burning eyes toward her. He raised his blade, pointing at his daughter. "This ends now," he thundered, his voice shaking the battlefield. The armies clashed, the city roared. The desert itself seemed to bleed with fire. Soraya stood tall despite her weak legs, her staff blazing brighter than the stars. Daniel moved to her side, his blade ready, his will unbroken. The Baron charged forward, his shadow falling over them like a storm. And in that moment, father and daughter, destroyer and survivor, faced one another. The final battle had begun, and the fate of more than one world now hung in the balance. The battlefield burned with fire and dust. Alien soldiers screamed as ancient machines struck them down, their weapons flashing with blue light. The desert shook as towers of black metal pulsed with energy, filling the night sky with fire. Yet in the middle of the chaos, two figures faced each other. The alien Baron with his blade of red fire, and Soraya, his abandoned daughter, with her glowing staff. Daniel stood at Soraya's side, his body bruised, his blade shaking in his hand. He could barely breathe, but he would not step away. The Baron's eyes glared at him with hatred. "You dare to stand between me and my blood?" he thundered. Daniel raised his blade anyway, his voice steady. "I dare, because she is worth more than you will ever see," the Baron roared. Swinging his massive weapon, the ground split under the strike, rocks exploding into shards. Daniel stumbled back, barely blocking the blow, his arms trembling under the force. The Baron struck again, faster, stronger. Each swing like thunder, Daniel's blade cracked. Sparks flying, but he refused to let go. Soraya raised her staff, light bursting from its core. The city answered her call, walls rising to shield Daniel. Machines firing to push back the Baron's soldiers. But the Baron was no ordinary foe. His power burned like a storm, cutting through the defenses. He stepped closer with each strike, his voice filled with rage. "You are nothing, Soraya. You are a cripple, a curse. You were never worthy to rule." Her hands shook, her legs weak, but her eyes burned with defiance. "I am not your weakness," she shouted, her voice echoing through the canyon. "I am your fear, and I am what you tried to destroy." The Baron lunged, his blade aiming straight for her heart. But Daniel moved first, his body throwing itself between them. The blade struck Daniel, the force knocking him to the ground. Blood stained the sand as he gasped, his hand still clutching his broken weapon. Soraya fell to her knees beside him, her tears burning her face. "Why did you do this?" she whispered, her voice breaking. Daniel smiled weakly, his voice fading. "Because you are worth saving, and because humans see what others cannot," the Baron laughed coldly, lifting his blade for the final strike. But before he could swing, the staff in Soraya's hands blazed like a star. The city roared with her cry, its towers shaking. Its machines rising in unison, the ground split open, light bursting upward like fire from the heart of the earth. The Baron froze as the energy wrapped around him, holding him in chains of blue light. Soraya rose to her feet, though her legs trembled. She stood tall before her father, her voice clear and strong. "You left me to die, but I lived," she declared. "You called me broken, but I became whole. You feared my weakness, but it is my strength." Her eyes burned brighter than the stars. "And now your power ends," the Baron roared in fury. Struggling against the chains, he struck with his blade, but the light shattered it into pieces. His army fell silent as their master was brought to his knees. The desert trembled with the sound of his fall, and Soraya, once a forgotten child, now stood as the victor. Daniel lay weak on the sand, but his eyes widened at the sight. He saw her standing there, taller than her broken body allowed, glowing with the fire of destiny. He whispered with the last of his strength, "I told you. You are stronger than you know." Soraya turned to him, her tears falling. "Stay with me, Daniel. Please." The city responded to her heart, beams of light falling gently on him, healing the wounds slowly. The dawn broke across the horizon, painting the desert in gold. The fires of war dimmed. The machines stood silent. The soldiers fled into the dunes. The Baron was gone, his shadow broken, his empire trembling without him. And Soraya stood in the light of morning, her staff glowing softly. The crippled child abandoned in the sand was no more. She was the keeper of the forgotten. She knelt beside Daniel, her hand gripping his tightly. "You saw worth where no one else did," she whispered. "You gave me strength when I believed I had none. And now the city lives again because of you." Daniel smiled faintly, the warmth of life slowly returning to him. "Then we will build something new," he said. Together, Soraya looked up at the rising sun, her eyes filled with fire and hope. The city pulsed with life behind her, ready to awaken fully under her command for the first time in her life. She was not afraid. She had been abandoned, but she had risen. She had been broken, but she had healed, and with a human by her side, she would change the stars forever. The desert was no longer her grave. It was her throne, and from that throne a new dawn began,